Hi everyone, welcome to my second video on this YouTube channel. So last time we talked about the first book of the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and today we'll be continuing with the second book, A Court of Mist and Fury. Unfortunately, could not completely match with the cover page like I did last time because unfortunately they changed the covers. I bought the first one years ago, but I never got to reading it, so I never really bought the rest of the series because I was scared I wouldn't like it, and then I didn't want to waste my money. And then when I finally started reading it, like in January, they had changed it. Now I have these, which I don't care for very much. I don't like them. They're just not as nice. They're not ugly, but they don't give me the same feeling that this one does. I'm currently desperately trying to find them used somewhere. That's why I am wearing black, because I do think it is more fitting to the story since they are in the night court a lot more. So before I get started with the review, just to let you know, this video might contain spoilers of the first book. So if you haven't read the first book, don't watch this. But if you have read it, this video will not contain spoilers of the second book, so it's safe. Like I said, I was in a bit of a book slump for a couple of years. These are all books I read in high school because I was a big reader in high school, and then just suddenly it stopped. But this is the first book series that really has made me want to start reading again or really get into it again. I don't know if it's because it's the first series I've picked up for a really long time that I love it so much, or if it's because that it's genuinely such a good book. I just haven't been this obsessed with the series in so long. I haven't felt such an attachment with characters, but I think that says something about the series. So the second book is a continuation of the first book. It picks up where we left off. Farah has just defeated Amarantha. The lords are all free of the curse, the spell. Everybody's going back to their own proper courts. Farah, as you know now, has become a fae since after basically just dying, the High Lords all gave her a speck of their powers to bring her back to life. Now she transformed into a fae. So the story kind of starts with her and Tamlin back in the Spring Court, trying to bring peace back to their land, trying to just go back to normal. Farah struggling with her new body, this new transformation, with the trauma of having been tortured for basically 3 months. And the same thing goes for kind of all the characters. They're all just struggling to find themselves again, to get over the trauma, to come past it and rebuild their world after this kind of war, spell, curse type thing. Tamlin and Farah are kind of expected to act as one united front to make the citizens feel at peace, and that's where some problems show up. And if you remember, in the first book, in exchange of having her arm healed by Rhysand, she promised him 1 week every month in his court. So that also comes into play. She's going to have to go to his home 1 week every month. The story is kind of bouncing between the Spring Court and the Night Court at first. So I'm gonna try not to say too much more. That's just how the story starts, and then you're led into many more adventures, new villains that come into play. Farah is basically just gonna have to go through all this and learn how to be in her new body, befriend different characters, and kind of figure out what she wants now that she doesn't necessarily have to take care of her family anymore. Doesn't really feel like she has a role to play anymore. She's just figuring out who she is. Everyone says that the second book is the best in the series, so obviously I was excited but also worried because I didn't want to be disappointed. And apparently Sarah J Maas loves to change love interests, as I mentioned in my first video, so I was really scared because Tamlin had grew on me. I can agree that the second book was the best. Even though I'm not done with the series yet, I still have the third and fourth to read. I also pre-ordered the fifth one about Nesta, even though I'm not really a fan of Nesta, but that's for another video. All that to say, the second book, until now, is my favorite. The level of romance in the second book is way up here. The first book is actually really low, and then the third book I'm halfway done, but I'd say it's kind of a middle for now. So A Court of Mist and Fury, personally I found it a tiny bit more confusing than the first, only because you are introduced to many more characters, to many new locations. You're not just stuck between Farah's home and the Spring Court. In the first book, you're just in the Spring Court and at some point under the mountains. But in the second book, you're introduced to the Court of Nightmares, the Court of Night itself. You're introduced to like this prison, this mountain, all these things that I'm not gonna talk too much about so I don't spoil it. Basically a lot more than the first book, so it was a little bit confusing. You do have the map at the beginning of the book, which is pretty helpful. You get used to the new places and the new characters pretty quickly because they're constantly there, especially the characters. They are part of the story from there on, like throughout the book and throughout the third book. But despite all the new characters that are introduced, you do get used to them pretty quickly because they become a part of the story. They're there constantly once they're introduced. So even though at first it's a little bit confusing, you just learn, I guess, memorize who they are. You understand who they are eventually. This comes into play with the whole loving the side characters. They are even better than the first book characters. I thought Lucien was great, which I still do. I still love him, but the new people that are introduced are even more fun, even more likable, lovable. In terms of suspense, or rather adventure, there is more in the second book, which is actually a complaint many people had about the first book, thinking that it lacked a plot, it lacked adventure, it lacked suspense, which I did kind of disagree with. But after reading the second, the first one does seem a little bit more bland. In the second one, you're constantly learning things, constantly seeing new places, constantly having like a mission to fulfill. And I just felt more suspense throughout the book and more romance. So much more romance, guys. Chapter 54 and 55, write it down. That's hands down like the best chapters in terms of romance. I might make a video of like all my favorite parts of the whole series, so let me know if you guys would be interested in that. I know I'm gonna do like a whole discussion because there's so much I want to talk about, but since in my reviews I try to keep them spoiler free, I can't. Honestly, the book was so good that I woke up I think like at 7 a.m. or even earlier, and I was still tired. Like I still wanted to go back to bed, but because I had to know what happened, I just like continued reading it. Despite the book being my favorite, the ending was the worst. It was awful. Not awful in a sad way, but it was just like something really annoying happened, and I wanted to scream. I wanted to just like throw the book away and never look back. I was in shock, disappointed, but be grateful that we don't have to wait a year for the next one because it's already out, it's already published. So like I just started it right away, but it was really hard to start it because the thing that happens, like you're just gonna have to still read about it. It was really a piss off. Despite that, I am still giving the book a 10 on 10 in terms of rating because everything about it was perfect except the ending. But that's okay, it's okay. It's something that can get fixed. A minor event that pissed me off. A Court of Mist and Fury, 10 on 10, lovable characters, great storyline, writing excellent as always. Things are simple enough to understand, but yet complex enough that you remain interested in the story. You're not just bored. I love the world that Sarah J Maas has created with this series. I think it's just so perfectly done and so magical. You feel different things when you're in different locations. You feel differently with every book, and I think that's something that's very rare nowadays. It's so hard to be completely sucked into a world. By the end of the book, you don't love Rreview, then we are going to have some problems. So next time I will be reviewing, of course, the third book of the series, A Court of Wings and Ruin, which I'm kind of halfway done. Until now it's pretty good, but we'll keep that for next time. So thank you for watching. If you have any suggestions, anything that you want me to mention next time, please let me know. Make sure you subscribe so you stay tuned, and follow my Instagram and TikTok as well. Bye!